You are listening to the SDSU podcast, presented by the East Village Times, with your host, Andre Hagverdian. Welcome, listeners, back to another episode of the SDSU podcast. I'm your host, Andre Hagverdian, joined, as always, when we're talking football, by Bryant Thursby. What's going on, Bryant?
Nothing much. Ready to talk some Aztec football.
Yeah, the regular season is over. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably well aware of what's happened over the last, 5 days, starting on Black Friday. San Diego State had a chance to win and host the Mountain West Championship game here in Snapdragon this coming Friday night. They lost to New Mexico in double overtime. We know they lost out on the tiebreakers and didn't get to play in the game at all. So we'll talk about that too. But just starting with the New Mexico game, a frustrating game. Knowing what was on the line, knowing that, they obviously had controlled their own destiny, had plenty of chances to win. You objectively, if you had an objective person watching this game and you asked them who they thought was a better team, I think most people would say San Diego State based on how the game played out, except for the win-loss column. Um, Give the Lobos credit. I mean, especially their defense stepped up big time, stalling drives for the Aztecs and then making plays towards the end of the game. Austin Brawley, Jackson Eck, Tavian Combs, they were terrific. Um, but yeah, the Aztecs fell behind 10-0, came back, took the lead at halftime, and then it was basically a tie game towards the end. What did you make of the game?
Loses. What to make of it? First half, it's very clear that either Sean Lewis does not trust Jaden Denegal to throw intermediate routes, or Jaden Denegal cannot throw intermediate routes. And that
Yeah.
is a massive problem in the passing game, which hopefully coming up in this bowl game, they have a couple weeks to practice. Hopefully they're working on it. But just in the first half, noticing is San Diego State got the lead because Jaden Denegal threw a really good pass, absolutely dropped it in the bucket for a touchdown. But besides that, it's just the same old thing with this offense.
Yeah, honestly, watching this game, I thought Denegal had probably his best performance of the last 6 games of the season. Now that's not saying much, but he looked more comfortable. The intermediate stuff wasn't there, but he threw probably one of the nicest deep balls of the season for the touchdown to Donovan Brown. He had another deep ball that on the sideline that Brown, he didn't drop it because the defender kind of hit him, but it could have been caught as well. Um, he made some nice plays rolling out. He had a pass when he rolled out and threw to Jalen Hawkins. Um, but yeah, I think the last 2 minutes of regulation and the overtimes kind of fell apart, as we'll talk about in a little bit. But um, for the most part, I thought he was playing well. It just the drives were stalling when they would get it into New Mexico territory. Lucky Sutton had a great game, 110 yards. He probably should have gotten the ball a little bit more. The pass run ratio was pretty close to 50-50. I don't it was still more run, I believe, but um, they definitely could have leaned more on the run in this situation. The defense had 7 sacks, a season high. They played really well, except for two blown fourth and one plays that went for big rushing touchdowns. Um, if you saw those plays, what do you make of those breakdowns defensively? Um, the first one was more the quarterback running up the middle, kind of getting lost behind the trees, and then kind of sneaking out and running in. To me, that's more of an unlucky play than it is a defensive breakdown. But what would you call it?
To me, I would say it's a little bit of both. It's both a defensive breakdown and it's both a little bit unlucky because He shouldn't be able to bounce it outside because if the outside linebackers are doing their job properly, they're forcing him to go inside, even in like a sneak formation in what New Mexico got in and everything to try and jam it inside for just one quick yard. You're still supposed to hold outside contained just in case one of those trick plays happens, because we've seen
Mm.
San Diego State run it a couple of times where they've done the dive when they've put three backs in the backfield and Denegal under center. They've run the dive, but then they've also done trick plays out of it where they've done wide runs and
Yeah,
the outside linebacker has to keep contained. So the outside linebacker has to keep contained. Shouldn't have been able to bounce it. Chris Johnson, we've been saying his praises all year, and he just couldn't get off a block. Chris Johnson gets off that
yeah,
block quicker. It's still a first down, but it's not a long touchdown like it ended up being.
yeah,
I thought a major killer, at least in the first half, uh, was when Jason Eck forced that fumble.
yeah.
I think if Jason Eck doesn't force that fumble and San Diego State is able to at least get three in that drive, obviously things go differently after that. Maybe it's 17-10 going into the half. Maybe San Diego State has a little bit more than 3 points. Who knows? But Jason Eck played one heck of a game, especially in that first half that
That was
I was
I.
able to watch.
That was the first fumble by a running back for San Diego State all year. I think I might have jinxed it. I think I mentioned it either last week or the week before that they
You
had.
mentioned it
Yeah.
before the game in our preview pod, and you said, "I hope I don't jinx it." And well,
Yeah, my bad. But I guess it was inevitable it would happen eventually. But yeah, that was a killer. Um, but they did bounce back, taking the lead at halftime. The other killer play that's been talked about a lot is the defensive pass interference on Dwayne McDougal that Malachi Finau intercepted off the tip. It was called back. San Diego State would have had the ball at the 20 at the New Mexico 29 with a tie game. Probably have a field goal, maybe a touchdown to take the lead to start the fourth quarter. I mean in my opinion that was a bad call. Not because it hurt San Diego State, but because I think the ball was errantly thrown and McDougal kind of got there at the same time. Now they bumped into each other, but they were both going for the ball. It wasn't a case of where McDougal was interfering with the receiver's ability to get the ball. They were both going for the ball. There was also a potential that Niles King tipped it at the line of scrimmage. It was really hard to tell on replay. It did kind of look like the ball changed direction, but it was really close. I mean, I don't know if they would have overturned it on replay, even so, but that was a killer play that I think was a wrong call that really could have changed that fourth quarter. But you have to play through it. You still had opportunities to win that game if you're San Diego State.
yeah, I heard about the pass interference call. People were trying. I couldn't find any clips posted on Twitter or anything for some like searching through San Diego State Twitter. I wasn't able to find any clips, but people were just talking about it. Mentioned that now is King tipped it at the line, and just reading that, I'm kind of just like, well, sometimes San Diego State fans have a tendency to overreact when it comes to penalties. But if Now King did tip it at the line of scrimmage, then it's free game. There's no pass interference.
Yeah.
Um, that's highly unfortunate from what I was able to hear. But San Diego State also too many self-inflicted wounds. Too many self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of recapped their drives in the second half, right? So, first drive of the third quarter, they got to the New Mexico 40. So they went, got in New Mexico territory, but they punted on 4th and 6. Second drive, they got to the New Mexico 29. Jackson Ford was called for an illegal touching penalty, even though he scored a wide open touchdown because he was ineligible because the receiver covered him up. Um, that took points off the board. And then Placencia missed a 52-yarder. Um, the next drive, they got to the New Mexico 26, but Placencia tied the game this time with making the field goal. But all these drives were they were getting first downs. They were getting in. field goal range or close, but they were stalling on third down. First drive of the fourth quarter, they got to the 41 in New Mexico, but had the punt. Second drive, they got to midfield, the 49, they had to punt again. Third drive, which was at the end of the game, they got to the 42 of New Mexico with 2 minutes left. Looked like they were in pretty good position to maybe get, I don't know, 6 yards. Even if they got probably 5 to 6 yards, they could have probably sent Placencia out there to kick a winning field goal. But Jaden Denegal took a sack. Austin Brawley made a nice play. It was kind of like an all-out blitz off of an RPO, and Denegal kind of really slowly went through that handoff, and um, it busted up, so they lost yardage and had the punt. So they had plenty of They were pretty much all every drive they got to New Mexico territory, but they ended up with 3 total points in that half. And we can talk about what happened in overtime, but to me, that's where they lost this game is not being able to win in regulation, given the amount of opportunities they had. Because the defense, after they gave up the second touchdown, they were forcing three and outs. They were winning the field position battle. And that's where they kind of let this game really slip away that they didn't take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's kind of been a problem with this San Diego State team when they're not able to run the ball as effectively as they want to. Still able to run the ball effectively, but
Yeah,
not able to get the chunk plays that they want out of it, which
yeah,
as an offensive coordinator and as a coach, all you're asking is for your offense, okay, if we get the third down, get me to third and manageable. Get me to third and
yeah.
five, get me to third and six, like get me to these yardage downs where I don't need to go for the big play on like a third and 13 where I need a 10-yard dig and then a post right behind it and an out route on the other side of the field where I don't have to do these big plays. I can draw up a shallow crosser. I can draw up some shallow concepts, some mesh concepts. But just Denegal, I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. Those intermediate routes have been missing all year, and that helps you on those third and five situations because you can get 5 yards and keep the chains moving. Because it looked like a lot of those third down passing plays seemed like they were deeper plays that were just not connecting. Um, so yeah, that's something for next year, whoever the quarterback is, whether it's Donegal or if it's another guy, there that has to be developed into something, something more than what they had this year, which wasn't much in that regard.
Yeah, I think Denegal has, I think it's very clear when you watch Jaden Denegal that he has the arm talent. And
Yeah,
now he has to match the arm talent and the crazy cannon that he has with a little bit of touch and a little bit of processing. Because it seems like something that he struggles with is processing at times. Like
yeah,
a couple weeks ago, last home game, the one that we were at, wide open over the middle tight end, and it's just struggled to go through his progressions and notice the tight end was open, and then just immediately took the check down when he still had another second and a half in the pocket. It seems like processing is a problem for him. Doesn't have as much touch as you want him to have, but he has a cannon, and I think he has a lot of talent. And I think you give him one more off season with Sean Lewis and with this offense and with the weapons that Sean Lewis is bringing in and going to bring in the transfer portal. I think Jaden Denegal can be a pretty solid quarterback.
yeah. I do agree. Sometimes the decision making is more important than arm talent and foot like leg talent is. Like you don't need I was talking to somebody about this the other day during Thanksgiving. Like you don't need Michael Vick back there to excel in Sean Lewis's offense. Like it helps to have a good arm. It helps to be fast and being able to be elusive in the RPO, but like just decision making and processing and taking what the defense is giving you because there's always going to be somebody open on a passing play. It's just a matter of is it your first primary guy, is it the second guy, is it the third guy? And kind of processing that and decision making, I think is a big part of how effective a quarterback could be in this offense. I mean, you can go back and look at Kent State. Like, does anybody know who the quarterback at Kent State was for Sean Lewis? Like, he didn't have to be a superstar to be effective in that offense. And I just think sometimes it's people get swayed by this guy's 6'5", 240, runs a 4.5, has a cannon, and that stuff is good too, but it's not the most primary thing sometimes just to be an effective player, passer in Division One. So yeah, yeah, you're right. Off season could be very important for Donegal. He could be a much different quarterback, much better quarterback next season at this time.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to next season, assuming, you know, Sean Lewis, from at least my belief, is not going to be leaving this program at least
Yeah.
after this year. Assuming Sean Lewis stays and Jaden Denegal stays, I think give him just one more year. I think he'll be solid next year.
Yeah, I mean the last piece I wanted to talk about on this game was obviously the false starts. After New Mexico scored a touchdown in the second overtime, actually Donegal had a really nice run to get to the 10-yard line, first and goal. And then they had three false starts by three different offensive linemen. Um, there's not a lot of first and goal from the 25 plays. Um, then I think Donegal got sacked and lost the ball, recovered it. And then on third down, he rolled out, and instead of throwing the ball away, he ran out of bounds and lost 5 yards. So fourth and goal from the 30, not set up for success. And then he threw the ball out of bounds. Like he threw it on the back of the end zone, didn't give a receiver a chance to even come down with the ball. So I think that was frustrating as well, is you got to give at least throw the ball inbounds in the end zone to give your receivers a chance, whether it gets intercepted or not. It's better than throwing the ball away and having zero chance. So that I think added to the frustration by the team, the staff, the fans that the way that ended obviously and cost them, as we know now, a Mountain West championship game.
Yeah, which we can go over the criteria and
Yeah.
the selection committee process of the Mountain West, which is agreed on by all teams when they sign the contract and everything. The Mountain West Championship game is going to be UNLV at Boise State. New
Yeah.
Mexico and San Diego State was left out. Um, UNLV 10-2. I believe the only double-digit win team in the conference.
Yeah, if you count non-conference, yep.
I believe the only double digit win team in the conference. I think they went right with the UNLV pick. Going 10-2. Obviously, they had two losses in conference, but you cannot leave a 10-2 team out of the championship. That's my opinion. That's not even just data analytics driven. 10-2 team. They had some pretty okay wins too. Um, and then the Boise State pick, I get with the computer rankings and everything, and that's how the system goes and stuff. Just a little peculiar to me. I feel like San Diego State, amongst the four teams, had the best out of conference win. I think Cal was a better win than either the UCLA wins from UNLV and New Mexico.
Hmm.
I think San Diego State played New Mexico pretty solidly. Should have probably won the game from what I've been hearing from you and other people that watched the game. Should have won the game, but didn't. Faced Boise State, granted in the rain, but dominated them in San Diego, and San Diego State was left out. It's tough, but if you're San Diego State, you controlled your own destiny and you lost in New Mexico in a Black Friday game.
Yeah, I mean, for every argument somebody makes to, the new UNLV having 10 wins, there's counter arguments to that. And I think there's there's a lot of different ways it can go. I feel like the process played out as it was intended to do. Um, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what the tiebreakers actually were. Like, this wasn't rigged by the Mountain West to put their two favorite teams in there. Like, it's an objective rankings that's independent of the Mountain West. Some people think that's Sports Source because it's proprietary. It's just a made-up ranking that the Mountain West is using. That's not true. Obviously, the teams know what the rankings are. Like, just because we don't have access to it doesn't mean the teams don't. or else they would be up in arms about not making it because of some made up. So I think it played out. Head to head is still the king when it comes to tiebreakers. In this scenario, it's an unbalanced schedule, and UNLV San Diego State didn't play, and therefore they didn't have 3 games to win two like Boise and New Mexico did. I wrote an article, I put out an article on EBT about this. Like San Diego State would have, if they would have gone with head to head at winning percentage, well, it would have been New Mexico and Boise State. San Diego State would have been left out because they didn't get to play and win a second out of 3 games. So that wouldn't have been fair to them. Um, so there's a lot of different ways this could have gone. It sucks to have to wait till Sunday morning until they give us computer ranking averages. But what is the alternative in this scenario where you have unbalanced schedule, you don't have divisions anymore, which I didn't agree with divisions anyway. You're trying to get the 2 best teams in your championship game overall so that you can have the best chance of having the highest group of 5 ranked team. So I get why they did away with divisions. I get why they used the computer rankings as a third or fourth tiebreaker scenario. Like it's not the number. It didn't go straight to tiebreak to computer rankings with instead of using head to head. Head to head just didn't apply in this case. So all that to be said, like it's not the greatest system, but I just don't know how you improve it. For every argument I've heard by some people, there's a counter argument to that some other team would argue shouldn't apply. So I don't know, man. I mean, if you ask me who I think the 2 best teams in the Mountain West were this season, I would say it was San Diego State and Boise State. Like if you're putting me in a committee where we're sitting down talking, those are the two. I think Boise State's the best team in the conference. I think without their starting quarterback, they lost 2 games that they probably wouldn't have lost if Madsen was still the starter. I think they went in and beat Utah State, which is a really tough game. Um, they played a tough schedule. I mean, they played South Florida, who's in the mix for the Group of Five champion, and they played Notre Dame, which is number 9 team in the country. Like that's the other thing about total wins is you can't harm. If you're gonna go with total wins, then yeah, why not just go schedule 4 cupcake non-conference games so you're guaranteed 4 wins? You know what I mean? Like there's so many different ways to look at it. Um, but yeah, it is what it is, and San Diego State is not one of the top 2 teams and in the rankings and didn't make the game, and that they're gonna have to sit with that for an off season.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to try and fix a selection like this because like
Yeah,
counter somebody's counter argument that I heard briefly while passing by is, oh, just get an outside committee to look at each team's schedules and each team's wins and then have that outside committee pick the 2 teams. And it's like the computer rankings are supposed to do that for you, which is the point
exactly.
of the computer
With an
rankings. You average.
objectivity instead of
Yeah.
having people decide it, right?
Yeah. Instead of having people decide it. Like you don't need an outside committee. That's the point of the computer rankings.
Yeah,
I Are the computer rankings debatable sometimes? I mean, Cal beats SMU, who's a ranked team, and San Diego State strength of record drops instead of improving. So you
yeah,
can argue that that's a flawed system, but computer rankings are objective. And on objectivity, UNLV and Boise State were the 2 best teams to pick for the Mountain West Championship. Do I agree with it that those are the 2 best teams? No, I don't agree that those are the 2 best teams. But it's not my decision. It's not anybody else's decision. It's the computer rankings, and just got to deal with it.
yeah. I mean, these are rankings. The American Conference uses the same 4 as one of their tie-breaking scenarios. All the Power 4 teams use Sports Source, the proprietary one that people think is made up, as a tie-breaking scenario on its own. So, I mean, these are credible rankings that even the committee, when they sit down to decide who's going to be in the college football playoff, they're using these four rankings, which is why so many of the conferences go by them. So it sucks. You know, there was going to be two teams that were going to be pissed off to not make it, and there was going to be two teams happy that they made it and they get to play, and that's just how it was going to be. Um, you know, if to be honest, if San Diego State beats New Mexico, right, they're number one by themselves. They don't need a tiebreaker. And then Boise and UNLV, that tiebreaker gets broken by head to head. Boise would win that. So you wouldn't, if San Diego State would have beaten New Mexico, they would not have even needed to go to computer rankings to break any ties. So it just happened this year that there was four teams that ended up at the top and head to head didn't apply and they ended up where they ended up. It happens.
Yeah, San Diego State had to take care of business, didn't take care of business. End of story.
So now they wait till Sunday morning to find out what bowl game they're playing. Um, the LA Bowl is out of the question because that's typically going to be the winner of the championship game between Boise and UNLV. You know, right now it's who knows? They could be in the Potato Bowl, right? But if Boise loses, I think Boise probably stays home and plays in the Potato Bowl, right? UNLV goes to the LA
Yeah,
Bowl, Boise goes to
once you
Potato.
get to
If
potato.
Boise wins and goes to the LA Bowl, at San Diego State could end up in the Potato Bowl. I don't think any Aztec fans wants to go to Boise during the holiday season, so I don't think that's at the top of the Christmas wish list for anybody. Um, I think the Arizona Bowl, the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl, is a good possibility against a MAC team. I think the some of those ESPN games in Texas are a possibility. The Frisco Bowl, the Texas Bowl, the Armed Forces Bowl. There's also the Guaranteed Rate Bowl that's in Phoenix. It's also in Arizona, but in Phoenix. So honestly, we it's my guess is, your guess is better than mine because I don't know at this point where they could potentially go between those options.
I don't know where they could potentially go either. Like if you had them tell me right now, all right, you got to place a bet down. What bowl does San Diego State get? We get the famous Idaho Potato Bowl and go to Boise, Idaho. Like that would be my bet on
Yeah.
where this team goes. I saw something earlier. I forget where I saw it. I saw it on Twitter somewhere that a writer for ESPN said San Diego State versus Iowa State, and I'm like, there's no shot.
Yeah, that was in the Texas Bowl, which is I think in Houston. That's at the NRG,
It's
where the
at the
Final
NR,
Four
yeah,
was,
it's
right?
yeah, it's at the NRG.
Yeah.
So I saw that and I was like, no way San Diego State pulls Iowa State for a bowl game.
I mean, it's possible if they get into one of those ESPN branded games that like Mountain West kid Phil. Um, I think if I had to make a bet, I'd bet on the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl just because I think that has a Mountain West tie-in, and I think because of the proximity to San Diego, that Arizona Bowl people would think that they could get a good crowd from San Diego. Um, but yeah, I think some of those the Frisco Bowl, San Diego State has played there obviously in the past. I mean, maybe twice. Um, so we'll see. I mean, sometimes they do leak. Like if they get announced or they get an invite, sometimes they'll be announced before Sunday morning. But we probably won't know until Sunday morning.
At
So
the
people,
earliest Saturday night, at
yeah,
the latest Sunday morning. That's
yeah.
when San Diego State fans should be looking to where San Diego State's going to be playing and what bowl game they're going to get.
Yeah, we're recording this Tuesday night. This is going to come out Wednesday morning, but the conference awards were announced today. A lot of San Diego State players on first team, second team, honorable mentions. They had 15 total, which is the most by any school. Chris Johnson, obviously the biggest one, was co-defensive player of the year with Jackson Eck from New Mexico. I'm a little surprised of the I thought he would have had that by himself, even though Eck had a great season. He's the fourth Aztec to win the honor, um, with Kirk Morrison, DeMonte Casey, and Cameron Thomas. Morrison and Casey actually won it back-to-back years when they were on the Mesa. Um, but Trey White, Owen Chambliss, joined Chris Johnson on the first team. Lucky Sutton, Ross Ulugala Masuli, and Jordan Napier as a punt returner made the first team. And then you had Jordan Napier as a wide receiver, Christian Jones, and then Placencia and Hunter Green on the second team. Um, we know what's notable about that. Somebody mentioned this to me via text earlier today. You know, seven of the nine guys on the first and second team were guys that were recruited under Brady Hoke. They were already here when Sean Lewis got here. I think that it's an I don't know what that means, but it means something. I think that there's still these guys stuck around and stayed and helped to rebuild the team, the program. And then all five honorable mentions: Seth Adams, Kaniki, Tana Latuli, Phillips, and DeLaShawn Staley. All our new guys under Sean Lewis, at least in the last 2 years. So something to think about in that sense. But what do you think of that? Just the combination and anything you're surprised by, or any snubs? Anything you want to talk about there?
Not really surprised too much by anything. If I had to pick, you already pointed it out, Chris Johnson not getting solo defensive player of the year.
Yeah,
Um, Jackson Eck, he was terrific all season long, but personally, I feel like somebody who's been one of, if not the best cornerback in the country and is a first round, second round NFL draft pick should have been defensive player of the year. There shouldn't have been no co-defensive player of the year. That's my
yeah,
only gripe with it. But Trey White, well deserved. Owen Chambliss, we've been speaking his praises all year long on this podcast. Chris Johnson doing the same there. Obviously, Jordan Napier as a punt returner, we know how shifty he can get. Lucky Sutton, well deserved. Ross, I mean, dude's just a killer. He's played all over the offensive line, moving the center, new position, and he played really well. He played really
yeah,
well for San Diego State, played really well in this system. Everybody on the second team offense, Placencia, been great all year. Napier, before he got hurt, if Napier doesn't get hurt, he probably gets first team
yeah.
over Pagan from Utah State.
Hmm.
Probably, because I feel like Jackson Harris and Danny Scudero were the two locks, in my opinion, for
I'll
first
get
team All
yeah,
Mountain West. But no complaints. Don't think there's anybody different that I would have put on here. Think it was a good squad. Sean Lewis did a really good job both keeping the players that Hoke had that had a lot of talent in
yeah,
his recruiting class in San Diego and also finding talent to come to San Diego State and contribute at a high level. Hunter Green notably has been amazing this year as a punter, flipping field position, setting the defense up for success.
yeah,
Deshaun Staley, Tano Latuli before his injury, if he doesn't get hurt, he's probably at least second team defense, if not first team, because he was playing well all
yeah.
season long. A lot of talent on this team. It's tough that this team's not in the Mountain West Championship game, but a great season that I personally did not expect.
Yeah, the one name I think that was surprising to me that was missing was Eric Butler. Um, and honestly, I wasn't. It's not shocking because he was one guy that didn't have like the stats didn't jump out to you. Like he doesn't have the turnovers, or the high tackles. Um, and most of these coaches and media folks that are voting makes total sense is like they can't watch every game, every play of every game, and they're going off of box scores and statistics, and Eric Butler does not necessarily have that, but I mean his play in the slot, he shut down the slot all season for San Diego State. He was as big part of a defense as I think of some of the other guys that made the teams. And he didn't get talked about a lot this year because of probably lacking, an interception or a fumble or whatever like that. But I think he was really good in his final season, and I think he was deserving of some mention, either honorable or second team. But um, Yeah, and then the other people were just the other two linemen. The offensive line was so good, I thought, this year. Kalen Ellis and Joe Borjon. I think when you're talking about Ross, it makes sense that he was first team. But between Christian Jones, Kaniki, Ellis, and Borjan, I mean, I think you could have taken any two of those four probably and put them on the teams because of just how cohesive they were for most of the season, except for the overtime, double overtime against New Mexico with the
Yeah,
false
the
starts.
false
But
starts.
yeah. But yeah, it was all in all, I mean, a lot of representation by the Aztecs. And I didn't go back and look before this podcast, but I feel like last year they had maybe less than five people on the all conference team by the end of the season. Um, and now to have 15 on the first, second, and honorable mention, I think is impressive um, for this team.
Yeah, absolutely is impressive. Obviously, when we made our predictions earlier in the year on this podcast, I did not think that this team would have 9 wins. Thought this
Yeah,
team at most would get about seven. But they surprised me. Props to Coach Sean Lewis, props to Rob Arch, props to the entire staff, especially the defensive staff.
yeah,
I mean, that defense was lights out all year long, except for a couple games in there where, the Washington State game, the Hawaii game, those are the two main notable ones. Um, but props to this team. Sean Lewis did a great job this year. Obviously, Aztec fans know that there's a lot of job openings around the country right now, especially in Power Four schools. And Sean Lewis has said that his focus is on this team, and he has not spoke about whether he's potentially looking his or if he wants to stay in San Diego.
yeah. I mean, the fact that they won 9 games and there's kind of like a disappointing feeling around the program right now with probably the staff, the players, and the fans, I think says of how great of a season they really had, considering the expectations. I think the odds makers had them at 4.5 wins this year. They blew through that halfway through the season. Um, so yeah, it was an impressive all-around performance, and I think getting the guys to come back um, was key to that, and that started in last December. This time last year, honestly, after the last regular season game, when I would have bet the farm that you're going to see a mass exodus of all the good players from last year's team. That's what I was expecting based on what I was hearing from talking to folks near and the program and some family and parents, and things are just not in a good spot, I think, heading into the end of that season. And the turnaround of getting all these guys to stay, I think was a huge, huge step in that rebuild, I don't even know if you call it a rebuild because the rebuild was technically started when he got here, but just to be able to um, transform that kind of feeling around the program into keeping these guys and then doing what they did on the field this year was very impressive. So Lewis deserves definitely high praise for that. Um, you can talk about his game management and his play calling, and that's very fair criticism there based on what we saw all season. But as the head coach of a team that won 3 games last year and was predicted to finish eighth in the conference, I think the head coach has to get a lot of praise for what they did this year.
Yeah, and Sean Lewis, coaches are going to make mistakes, especially a young coach like Sean Lewis. And Sean Lewis, yeah, he was a head coach at Kent State, flipped that program, but he's still a young coach in the industry.
Mhm.
Like fans have to realize that with a young coach, somebody as talented as Sean Lewis, obviously we've seen his offensive mind. If those of you that watch Colorado games when Sean Lewis was doing the play calling before Deion Sanders took it away from him, Colorado's offense was in the top 50 offense in yards per game, points per game before Sean Lewis got his play calling taken away. And those of you that watched those Colorado games saw what a Sean Lewis offense can look like.
Yeah,
And he's a great coach, great offensive mind, great with just people, great personality. From what I've heard from recruits, from what I've heard from other coaches on the staff that I've spoke to. Just a great dude all around, and San Diego State's lucky to have him. And if you're a San Diego State fan, you hope JD Wicker gives him an extension and gives him a little bit of a pay raise to keep him on the Mesa because I think Sean Lewis can take this program where fans want it to go.
Yeah, I don't know if that I guess it depends on if he's getting offers. Um, After what happened with the extension with Brady Hoke after the 12-2 season, I think I don't know if JD Wicker is maybe a little bit gun shy with giving out extensions after 1 year. Now, that's kind of how college football is these days. Like we just saw Jason Eck getting an extension and a huge pay raise after 1 year at New Mexico. But his salary was a lot lower than Sean Lewis is right now. And it's still, even in his new extension, he's still making less than Sean Lewis. So, um, different programs, different money structures, but still, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. The coaching carousel around college football is like really just getting started, even though a lot has happened in the last, 4 days, 5 days. So a lot can change between now and, maybe 2 weeks from now. But we'll see. I mean, you mentioned recruits. We should mention that as we're recording this on Tuesday night, and this is going to come out Wednesday morning, it's National Early Signing Day on Wednesday, December 3rd, where high school and junior college recruits can sign their letters of intent. Now, letters of intent don't really mean as much as they used to mean because it's really when people enroll in school nowadays, but it's still a signing that people celebrate. Um, Sean Lewis will have a press conference at noon on Wednesday to talk about the signing class. So expectation is that, they've got right now as we sit here, they've got 21 verbal commits that are looking or potentially signing tomorrow morning. So by the time Sean Lewis meets with the media, all 21 could have signed. Some of them might have decommit and flip to other schools. There might be new recruits that San Diego State flips overnight who signed with San Diego State. We saw that the last 2 years. Um, so yeah, we'll see what happens on that day. But it is just another new high school class coming in. Um, it's a little different now because I think 5 years ago there's a lot of excitement with a high school class because they'll be here for 4 or 5 years. You're going to see them develop and grow and build and become great players and hometown heroes potentially and all conference players. And now you're not even sure how many of 20 people who sign, let's say tomorrow, will even be here next year at this time, right? That's just the way college football is. But still a big, big, exciting day for these high school seniors. And they should be celebrated and talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean Lewis, early rankings came out. Recruiting rankings came out for the Pac-12 next year. It's already been updated. As of right now, San Diego State's ranked sixth uh,
Hmm.
in the recruiting with
Yeah.
other Pac-12 schools. But we've obviously seen Sean Lewis able to get talent and develop them. Jalen Hawkins, for one, a freshman receiver who I thought impressed in the 3 games that he played towards the end of the season. So even in the rankings and everything, got to trust the coach and trust Sean Lewis to develop these guys that he's bringing in out of high school.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're probably their three or four highest verbal commits that they had ended up decommitting and committing elsewhere. They lost two guys to UNLV, which I think was a huge blow. So that probably dropped their rankings a little bit lower than where they were before. But yeah, um, at the end of the day, these rankings don't really mean anything. They're fun to talk about and they're fun to use as measuring sticks, but so many, 4-star guys, 5-star guys who come into college and end up not really panning out. And you see 2, 3-star guys becoming all Americans. So I get it. It's good to use it as an evaluation tool. Six is not good out of what, nine teams.
Out of
So that's bottom half. But if you're confident in your recruiting development, you feel like you're picking the right guys, then I think that's really that what matters for San Diego State. And 2, 3 years from now, when we look back on a class, it's a lot easier to look and see, okay, these guys, this is what these guys did in college at San Diego State versus what some of these other guys did, and um, something to look at, 3 or 4 years down the line.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
All right. Any last words before we close this out?
No last words. Be on the lookout for podcast in the next probably 3 days of basketball after the Utah Valley game happening tomorrow night.
Hmm.
Basketball now with football kind of coming to a close is going to be in full swing.
Yeah.
Me, Chris, maybe a couple other writers might have something cooked up in the next week or so.
Yeah. Yeah. That basketball is in a tough state right now, 3-3, after the Players Era tournament, but a lot of basketball games still left to be played until we get to March. So, yeah, be on the lookout for that swinging into gear as well, for sure. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys as always tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening or watching this on. We appreciate you guys as always, and we'll talk next time. You are listening to the SDSU podcast, presented by the East Village Times, with your host, Andre Hackverdian.